Have you ever opened a legal case and wondered, what on earth is this saying? Now, if that's the case, you're not alone. Sometimes reading case law can feel like trying to decode another language, really. You've got endless paragraphs, you've got obscure references, and often judges who really love long sentences. But here's the good news, you don't actually have to read every word. And more importantly, you don't need to feel overwhelmed. Now, in this video, I am going to share with you 5 practical tips that can help you to read case law more effectively by reading faster, reading smarter, and by reading with way less stress. So let's jump straight in, and by the end of this video, hopefully you'll feel less daunted about reading case law. Now, tip number 1 is to know what you are looking for. Basically, you don't need to understand everything in a case. You're not really expected to memorize every paragraph, so don't worry about doing that. What you are looking for, though, is the legal principle. What is the rule or the test that the court ended up applying in this particular case? And what are the key facts that led to that particular decision? So that's really what you want to focus on. If you can summarize to yourself what happened, what the court decided, and why, then you're already ahead of the game. Tip number 2 is to use the case headnote first. So before you dive into reading the full judgment, check the headnote. That's the short summary at the top of most published cases. It's a bit of an abstract, really. It should basically tell you the basic facts, the issue, and the outcome in plain English. So you don't need to jump straight into the full case to decipher exactly what's going on. You can focus on the headnote. So it's not a substitute for reading the actual case, but what you can do is you can use the headnote as a preview. It's a little bit like reading the blurb on the back of a book before you end up committing to the full novel. So use that headnote to give you a sense of what the case as a whole is about before you actually dive into more of the details. Tip number 3, focus on the ratio decidendi. Basically just a fancy Latin phrase that means the reason for the decision. So this is basically the binding part of the judgment. Everything else, like the extra commentary or the hypothetical examples, is what is often called obiter dicta. It's interesting, but it's not absolutely essential. And obviously you really want to be focusing on what is essential. So don't stress about every single word or syllable. Focus on the ratio decidendi. Tip number 4 is don't read it all at once. Now, particularly if you've got a long or a dense case, try to break it down into chunks. So start with the facts, then maybe take a break to help your brain digest what you've been reading, and then maybe come back later for the reasoning. Finally, you can review the judgment and the outcome. What you want to do is you want to treat this case like layers. It's not something you want to try and conquer all in one go. So what you can do is to break it down and take a break between the different sections. Tip number 5 is to write your own case brief. So once you've finished reading the case, see if you can summarize the case in your own words. Now, a way of really making sure that you've understood it is to try and do that in just a few bullet points. Firstly, what happened? Secondly, what was the legal issue? And then thirdly, what did the court decide and why? Now, doing this can really help to cement the case in your memory, because if you're able to summarize it really succinctly in those 3 bullet points, it's going to help make sure you've really understood the case, and it's going to make revision so much easier later on. So there we go, 5 tips for approaching case law so that you can actually remember and figure out what's going on. Now, if you found this helpful, make sure to like and subscribe for more legal content. And why not leave a comment about what the hardest case that you have had to study so far is?